Hello, I'm Glaya, and I'd like to introduce to you a Japanese game called Age of Craft. It comes in a small, nicely portable box like this. It's a resource management game for 2 to 4 players, and it's expected to take about 40 to 60 minutes. Of course, that's always subject to how long each player decides to take to make up their mind what to do on their turn. So, that depends on your group. However, it's reasonably quick to set up, and the components that you get in the box are what you see here on the table. I'll explain what they are here in just a second. This game borrows a lot of the mechanisms from Settlers of Catan, so if you're familiar with that, then this should probably be pretty easy for you to pick up. It also takes a little bit from Dominion with the cards set out here, so I'll show those. You get a lot of dice in this game, but although you are rolling dice a lot, the dice themselves are used as resources. So once you roll a die, the number that it shows is going to be a particular type of resource. So for example, a number 1 is considered an unemployed worker. A number 2 is considered food. And number 3 is considered a farm animal, like a horse or some other animal of that nature. And number 4 is considered lumber. And number 5 is considered iron or other metal that you'd get out of a mine. And a number 6 is going to be your treasure, gold, gems, things of that nature that are going to be very expensive, and thus the 6s are very valuable in this game. So you do want to try to get a lot of 6s if you can. It'll help you buy things. I have set out here the suggested starting setup for a first game, as they say in the rule book, but this is not the only possible configuration of cards. The cards here in the top row, these 6 cards, are going to be in every game. These are called the basic cards. Just as in Dominion, you'll have your treasure cards and your victory point cards in every game. But the ones in the bottom row, these 7 stacks of cards, are called the random supply. So you can set out these suggested 7 cards for your starting game, but the game also comes with this huge stack of alternate random cards that you could set out in their place and change up the configuration every time. That way this game has a lot of replayability, similar to the way that Dominion has their different sets of cards that you set out in every game. So I'll set that aside for now. The way the game plays, every player starts out with 1 card in their city, and this is called the Deserted Village card, and it gives players the ability to trade 4 of any one type of die to get 1 die of any number that player chooses. This action can be taken once per turn. So every player starts out with that ability. As you go during the game, you'll be purchasing extra cards, and they will be laid out in your city, and that way you gain more abilities and more powers as the game goes on. You'll also be gaining victory points. If you'll notice in the lower corner of every card, there's this little laurel wreath, and inside the laurel wreath it tells you how many victory points that you get for adding that card to your city. The object of the game is to have the most points at the end. Now the way that the game ends is two different ways the game could end. You could have one player reach 20 points, and you could see everyone's points, so you can look around the table at your opponents and see how close they're getting to winning. Maybe that will help change your strategy a little bit. So the first player on their turn to reach 20 points automatically wins, and that ends the game. The second way that the game could end is if this stack of cards right here runs out. Now this stack of cards is called the Mercantile House. It's a production card, and what this does is when you add it to your city, every turn you will gain 1 die that has the picture written on here. In this case it's a 6, and so that's valuable in itself because I mentioned 6s are pretty important to the game. But this one's also worth 4 victory points, so that's another reason you would want this card. It will help increase your score. If this entire pile runs out, that also triggers the end of the game. So whoever buys the last card, that will end the game at the end of their turn. And at that point, whoever has the most points, even if they have not reached 20, is the winner. So I'm going to go over a little bit the different cards I have spread out here so you'll know what they are. And as you may be wondering, the cards do have their text all written in Japanese aside from the name of the card. The name of the card is written in English, but the text of the cards are all in Japanese. And I have been asked whether it's possible to play this game with people who don't speak Japanese. And I would say that absolutely, as long as you have at least one person who knows what the cards do and can explain that to the other players, then it's possible to play the game. I have played it myself with people who don't speak any Japanese at all, and once I explained what the cards did, they didn't even worry about the fact that they couldn't read the cards. They just went ahead and played and had a good time, so it was not a problem. Alright, so I'll start up here with the basic cards. From this one down, these 5 cards are production cards. As I mentioned, each turn after you've built it, so none of these effects take place the instant you build the card unless it specifically says so. Most of them you build it and then on the following turn it will take effect. So the following turn after you build these cards, they will each produce 1 die for you out of the general supply. 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2. There aren't any production cards in this setup that produce 1s because 1s are not very valuable. So you mainly want to get rid of your 1s. You can't buy a lot with them. This card on the end here is called the Residence. This can be purchased using a 6 plus 4 matching dice. So 4 dice showing the same number. This card is worth 1 victory point when you buy 1 of them. But as you accumulate more and more of them, they begin to increase in value. So if you buy 2 residence cards, then combined those 2 are worth 3 points. If you buy 3 residence cards, then combined they're worth 6 points. And so on, the value increases to a maximum of 6. So if you manage to buy 6 of these cards, together those will give you a total of 18 points, which is a lot. As you know, you only need 20 to win. So that's a pretty interesting strategy there to accumulate the residence cards. Now here in our random supply, we have a variety of different abilities. So on the end here, this is an attack card. What this card does is it allows players to steal dice from each other. And I should mention that there is no restriction on the number of the same card that anyone is allowed to buy, other than the number that is here in the supply. So there are 4 copies of each card. If someone wants to buy all 4 copies, then they can steal 4 dice per turn. But each individual copy can only be activated once per turn. Next we have the Marketplace. What this does is it allows players to convert 2 dice of one number into a die of any number. So this is much more efficient than your starting village. This is a good one to have. If you're not rolling the numbers that you want, you can use that card to convert numbers that you don't want into something more valuable. The Warehouse, when you buy it, allows you to take 2 of your dice and place them on the card, and that takes them out of your general stock of dice, which is good for a reason I'll explain in a minute, because it helps to protect you from going bust. And nobody wants to bust on their turn, so that would cause you to lose dice. So this reduces your chances of busting on your turn. This one here, the Great Rampart, will allow you once per turn to negate an attack against you. So if a person is trying to steal your dice, 1 card of this will protect you against 1 attack once per turn. This also has a large potential for victory points, because what this card has as its victory point value is it is equal to the number of production cards that you have. So if you're building up a huge variety of these production cards, then even just 1 card of this could end up being a lot of points. So that's pretty good, but it is very expensive to buy. This one is a negotiation card. It gives extra dice to people who engage in negotiation. So if you believe that you're going to negotiate a lot in the game, that's something you might want to pick up. It's also worth 2 victory points, which is double what a lot of the other cards are worth. This card allows you to convert between a 6 and some other number die. So you can either, on your turn, take one 6 and turn it into some other number, or take some other number and turn it into a 6. Either one of those actions, you get to choose one per turn. This one on the end, the library, is a very interesting card because it's most valuable if you buy it early in the game. You buy it, then as soon as it's built, place a die from the general stock, not from your own personal supply, on here with the number 1 facing up. And then every other turn after that, you increase the number on that die. So in the next turn after it's built, it will be a 2, and then a 3, and so on. Finally, it's going to reach 6 if you've built it early enough and the game lasts long enough. And at the end of the game, this card is worth however many points that die shows. So that's an interesting card that increases in value as the game progresses. Alright, so now you have an overview of what the cards do. I'm going to talk about how you're going to play the game. If you have a dice tray or a dice tower, this is the perfect time to pull it out because there's going to be a lot of dice rolling in this game. I'm just going to use the bottom of the box here. So you start out by everyone rolling 3 dice. Once you roll the dice, you take them out and you put them in your own little personal supply right there. So that person, first player, gets those. Second player gets these. All right. So we'll take a look at these dice that we've rolled. This person has a 5, a 4, and a 3. That's a pretty good spread. This person has a 4 and 2 3s. That's not bad either. Now, if we were playing with more players, of course, we'd go around and everyone would do that. The next part of setup is that each player in turn, beginning with the start player, gets to decide if they want to trade their 3 dice with the 3 dice of somebody else at the table. In a 2-player game, there's not a lot of choice, and right now these 2 rolls are pretty much equal. A 5 is a little bit more valuable, but having multiples of the same number is also pretty valuable because a lot of these cards require multiples of the same number in order to purchase them. So both of them are pretty even. But let's say if one of them had rolled a 6, for example, let's say this person had rolled a 6, this person would not want to trade their dice, but they go first, and then player number 2 says, you know what, I want that 6, and so they swap. You swap all 3 together, you don't just pick and choose individual dice. So that gives the second player a little bit of a compensation for not getting to go first. And so once you've gone around the table and the players have decided whether they're going to swap any of their dice with any of their opponents, then we begin the actual game. So every turn, you're going to take 3 dice. So player 1 takes 3 dice and rolls them. All right. So player 1 has 2 1s and a 3. Then what you do is you calculate the face value of what you rolled. The face value here we have is 5. Now then you compare that value to the number of dice that you have here. Here we have 3 dice, so we're good. If the number of dice in your possession is higher than the face value of the dice that you rolled, you bust. And what happens when you bust is that you have to take half of your dice, rounded down, half of the number of them rounded down. Let's say, for example, we had to do that. So this person would take this one. You start at the most valuable numbers, so the higher numbers, and you work your way down as you're taking your half. Then you would have to take those and add them to this pool that you rolled. Luckily, this person didn't bust, so this person doesn't have to do that. But that's something that could happen, and it's not fun when you have to lose half of your dice that you've been counting on in order to spend them. So you want to watch the number of dice in your possession. You don't want that to get too high. You don't want to hoard dice. So this is an anti-hoarding mechanism. All right, so then these dice don't just go directly to the person who rolled them. They are actually drafted. So the person who rolled the dice gets to choose 1. So this person will choose the 3. Then they go on to the next player, and that player gets to choose 1. So this player will take that, and then that leaves 1 here. Now, as you've noticed, the number of dice that you're going to get depends on the number of players. You're always going to roll 3 dice. In a 2-player game, That means the first player, the player here who rolled the dice, is going to get 2 of them, while the opponent gets 1. On the other hand, in a 4-player game, once the player who rolled them takes 1, and then the next 2 players take 1 each, the 4th player isn't going to get any from that roll. So that's an interesting difference between the 2-player game and a multiplayer game, the number of dice you get each roll. But of course, the roll travels around the table as other players take their turn. So in the end, it will even out. All right, so now comes the negotiation phase. After you have settled which dice go where, then you have the ability to negotiate. So if this person says, you know, I want to build up a bunch of 3s, for example. I don't know why the person might want to do that, but this card could be purchased with 3 3s and a 5. And this person says, well, I've got 2 3s and a 5. So I'm going to offer you my 4 and my 1 if you'll give me 1 of your 3s. You can make any kind of deals you want. This is similar to the negotiation Settlers of Catan. The thing here is, in a 2-player game, any deal that's going to be good for this person is probably not going to be good for the other player. So negotiation really is not going to be a big factor in a 2-player game. But once you get up to 3 players or 4 players, then negotiation could actually have a pretty big effect on the game. So you want to keep that in mind as another difference between the 2-player game and the 3 and 4-player games. I'm not going to be doing any negotiating in the rounds that I'm going to show here, mainly because it would be a little bit silly for me to be negotiating with myself, but also because it really doesn't help to negotiate much in a 2-player game. Alright, so once the negotiation phase has ended, then the player gets to decide, do they want to buy anything? Well, as I mentioned, the person does not quite have enough to buy this card, and looks like it does not have enough at this point to buy any of the others out there. So we're going to move the turn on to the second player. Second player does the same thing. Take 3 dice and roll them. And we have a 6, a 3, and a 1. So a 6, a 3, and a 1. The number is much higher than the number of dice that the person has, so no busting, that's fine. This person definitely wants to take the 6. This person is going to take the 3 because the person needed the 3 to buy something. And that leaves the 1 for player 2 over here. Alright, so taking a look around at what's available, it looks like this person does not quite have enough to buy anything that player 2 wants. Well, actually, no, it does not have 2 4s. Alright, so nothing going to happen on that turn. Alright, player 1 back here. We rolled, oh, very nice. 2 6s and a 3. So player 1 is definitely going to take the 6. This person is also going to take a 6. That leaves a 3 over here. Alright, so now we're getting more interesting spread of valuable dice over here. And let's see. The person on this side could choose to save dice. This one right here, this production card, costs 2 3s and 2 6s. This person definitely has the 3s, but still needs 1 more 6 in order to buy that card. So this person could hang on and try to get that. On the other hand, the person could spend, as I had mentioned before, 3 3s and a 5 to pick up this card here. Now that helps with negotiating. You get extra dice from negotiating. And I'm not negotiating this game, so that takes a little bit of the power away from this card. On the other hand, it's worth 2 victory points, and so that would give this person a 2 victory point lead, which is not terrible. I think this person is going to decide to wait, is going to hold out, try to get one of those production cards. So this, and is risking now busting because the number of dice in the collection is starting to build up. So we'll see how that turns out for him. Alright, player 2. We've got a 1, a 2, and a 1. Oh my goodness. So the person rolled a 4. With a 4, this person has much more than 4 dice, so is going to have to lose half of them. This person has 7 dice, so is going to lose 3. You start at the more expensive end and work in, so is going to lose these 3 dice. So what they do is they go into the pool here. Alright, so now this person is busted. Alright, Well, they still get to draft the dice. So this person will draft back a 6, and this person says, yay, I needed a 6, I was waiting for that, and so they take this 6. Right, so we go back to this person, they will take the 4, and then this person will take the 2, because they don't have a 2, it would be nice to get that. This person gets a 1, and this person gets a 1. Alright, so now we've split up the dice a little bit. That's what happens when you bust. Not very happy about that. So, is there anything now that player 2 can buy? Looks like, sadly, no, because the person lost the 6 that they had needed to buy the card that they wanted. So that's not going to happen this turn. Alright, so in that case, this person is going to have to go without buying any cards this turn. I should mention that when you're doing the purchasing of the cards, you are allowed to buy as many cards as you can afford. You're not restricted by the number of cards that you buy on any particular turn. So we're going to roll 3 dice for player 1 and hope he doesn't bust because he wants to keep all of his cards. Alright, he rolled 11, a 6, a 4, and a 1. He has 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, 11 exactly, which is very lucky because tying does not make you go bust, only exceeding the number. So this person was extremely lucky. Alright, so here we go. We're going to take this 6, valuable one. This person will take a 4, and this person will get the 1 that remains. Alright, now we're going to buy some cards. This person is going to take 2 6s and 2 3s and spend them to buy this production card. Now, as I mentioned, it does not produce anything the very first turn that you buy it, but in following turns it will. Alright, and is there anything else this person wants to buy? It does not look like anything else that this person can afford. So, actually, no, that would need more. And we only have 3 ones and not 4 of them, so that one can't be purchased. Alright, so we're good on purchasing cards. I'll do just a little bit more here. Alright, so thankfully this person got a pretty high number, 13, so they don't have to worry about busting this turn. And this person will now take this 6 and say, yay! And this person will say, I think I want, do I want a 3 or a 4? This is a little bit of a hard decision because it depends on if you get enough 4s, this person could buy this card that increases in value every turn, which would be nice to have. So this person is going to take the 4 and hope that they can get this. If that fails, they can buy this card for 2 4s and a 3, which is cheaper. So they definitely will have that as long as they don't bust. And that leaves this for this player. Alright, so now this player has the 2 6s and the 2 3s to spend to buy this production card. So now they're equal in what they have here. And it looks like this person can also buy this. This person can spend 2 4s and a 3 and buy this conversion card that allows the person to trade 2 of the same number for 1 of any other number. Now that takes effect on the next turn, so they can't use it right away when it's built. But on their next turn they can. Alright, so that concludes that second player's turn. I think at this point you've probably got a pretty good idea of how the game plays. It will just continue back and forth that way. You roll the 3 dice, you check to see whether you bust, then you see if there are any cards that you want to buy. You could have a strategy of going for a lot of production cards. You could have a strategy of going for these cards here that increase in value, or this one that increases in value as the game progresses. So there are a lot of different roads that you can take to victory in this game. And I think that's one of the things that makes it pretty interesting. And also the fact that you can change out these bottom row of cards and have a different set to choose from every time.